terms of the gender implications, the implications for development, the implications for a sustained life. So welcome, and I'm looking forward to this discussion between all of us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Opal. Thank you for that lovely welcome. And we're now going to go into greetings in that section, and we have three persons who will bring greetings. Dame Janice Pereira from the British Virgin Islands. She's the Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. Miss Dana McGrath from the US. She is the President of Arbitral Women and the Investment Manager and Legal Counsel of Omni Bridgeway. And Miss Karen Thompson Wilson from Jamaica, who is the Director of Legal Services in the Ministry of Justice. Now, in considering how I should introduce these wonderful women and their very extensive profiles, resumes, I thought that I would not go into all of that, because that you can find out, and I will save the time so that they will be able to use that more effectively in bringing their greetings. So let me call upon Dame Janice Pereira, who incidentally was called to the bar in 1981, as was I. Dame Janice.
Thank you, Ambassador Samba, and good afternoon all. I am really quite pleased to see you again, Ambassador Samba, because yes, I was in fact at the Norman Manley Law School, graduating in 1981 with you.
I know.
So I recall you.
To tell everybody all our secrets. We were at TFL together too.
Yes, indeed. So I am so pleased to be here. I am pleased to be able to give these brief greetings in my capacity as Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. And I wish to firstly commend Dr. Christopher Malcolm and his team at the Jamaica International Arbitration Center for organizing yet another iteration of the Coffee Time series. And I'm very happy that today's session concerns the topic of women in mediation, negotiating about gender, race, and systemic bias in the selection and treatment of neutrals. And I also would add that although we are not gathered together in person today, it is certainly great that technology, now as we are all using it, has facilitated this very important discussion featuring accomplished female mediators from across the world. Now, as you may be aware, of course, mediation assumes a critical role in the justice system. Mediation shuns the traditional adversarial approach to dispute resolution and engages instead parties in cooperation in settling their disputes, which has been proven to lead to long-lasting, and I would add amicable, resolution of disputes. And so over the last year, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court has placed great focus on its mediation process, and we see it as a vital complement to the court's work in resolution of disputes, particularly more so now given the significant impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the administration of justice throughout the Eastern Caribbean. And so the question here, to my mind, is where do women feature in the mediation process? There is no doubt, to my mind, that women are just as effective mediators as men, and in any event, women are more likely than our male counterparts to bring much needed soft skills to the mediation process, which often assists in achieving more lasting resolutions to parties, particularly in dealing with matters in domestic type disputes. As women, we know that we often face biases which seek to impede and undermine our contribution to the mediation process and our professional development generally. And it is nonetheless so in the Eastern Caribbean, where women account for about 58% of the mediators on our mediation roster. But when you take that percentage and contrast that with the number of women who are actually selected to mediate a dispute, you begin to see how that breaks down in terms of the data. And so, how do we as women deal with these biases? I definitely today look forward to listening to the experiences and insights of the panelists. And I have no doubt that this forum promises to be nothing less than a thought-provoking and enriching discourse on the experiences of women mediators. I thank you very much for the opportunity to bring these greetings to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dame Pereira. And now let me pass over to Miss Dana McGrath. Dana, over to you. Ladies, we're trying to keep the time, eh? So let me just remind all the speakers who are to come about the time constraints that we're under if we're to get through to that very important discussion that will take place in the panel. So Dana.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning to all of you around the world. It's a pleasure to be here and to see so many Arbiter Women members here and to see so many inspiring women here. It is an honor for Arbiter Women to be a part of this program and to be able to support this program. So thank you. And if I could just say a few words about Arbiter Women, for those of you who don't know us as well as the others. We are an organization with more than 25 years of fighting for women's rights and diversity and international dispute resolution. We were initially launched in Paris in 1993 by none other than Louise Barrington, one of our speakers today, together with Merez Philippe. And since then, in the more than 25 years, we have expanded globally and promoted women and diversity around the world. And now our membership spans 40 countries. We do a number of things to promote women and diversity. We organize and support events, for example, supporting this event and trying to give it visibility so that as many women have access as possible to such events. We also promote the achievements of our members on social media and other virtual platforms so that the world will know the qualifications and achievements of women in this field. We mentor and offer parental mentoring to women who are members. We educate the international community on a number of topics, both substantive dispute resolution topics as well as diversity. And importantly, we have launched a program called the Arbiter Women Diversity Toolkit, which was in fact developed by Louise Barrington, who is with us today. And that is a bespoke training program that focuses on unconscious bias, implicit bias, and ways to overcome it. And I think that that is a theme that will run throughout today's discussion. So I think you are very fortunate to have her with us. And if anyone is interested in learning more about this program, I'm dropping it in the chat so that you can learn about it later. I don't want to take up the time because I think the dialogue between all of you will be far more interesting than what I could tell you about what Arbiter Women has done. If you would like to learn more about Arbiter Women, you can visit our website. And I would also just like to mention, which many of you may know, that our members directory is searchable. And so if you are looking for a woman with a specific qualification, be it language, be it civil law, be it common law, be it any number of qualifications. There are drop-down menus, and you can search our members directory to try to find a woman with the kind of experience that you are looking for. So when they say, we wanted to suggest a woman, but we didn't know where to find them, Arbiter Women and some other like-minded organizations have tried to make it possible to find the women with the skill sets to fill those roles. And so I make that available to you in the chat as well. And with that, I thank you again for including Arbiter Women in this program. And I look forward to hearing from these inspiring speakers today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What I had wanted to say before you spoke was I was interested to see that you recently co-authored a chapter on third-party funding and COVID-19 in international arbitration and COVID-19 resolutions, which was published in late 2020. I think anything that I see the word COVID-19 on these days, I start to read. So I just wanted to say that. Now, our next speaker is Miss Karen N. Wilson. She's she's an attorney at law and director of legal services in the Ministry of Justice. Karen, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be as quick as possible. So, special greetings to our distinguished guests and to Dr. Malcolm, the Secretary General of the Jamaica International Arbitration Center, and his team for conceptualizing these reasonings, but also for his unrelenting commitment to placing Jamaica at the global forefront of ADR. I am honored to be here with you, to be a part of this event, and to have been afforded the gift of an opportunity to hear the views of the distinguished panel of strong female leads on a topic that is timely. Just this morning, I saw a news item which highlighted that for the first time in the history of the United States, 2 females will be occupying the chairs immediately behind the president during his State of the Union address. Wow. And those persons are the VP, Kamala Harris, and the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but for me, the imagery is quite moving, especially since the VP is of Jamaican heritage. The reasoning provides an opportunity for us to truly pay homage to our female leaders around the world by recognizing their contribution to peace, safety, and security, by recognizing the challenges they have had to endure and overcome to make their contributions, and to add our voices to the conversation on how to increase the role of women in ADR. In an article in the Peacebuilding Journal by Catherine Turner of the Durham Law School in the UK, published in 2020, and interestingly titled, Soft Ways of Doing Hard Things, Women Mediators and the Question of Gender in Mediation, it was highlighted that the arguments in favor of increasing the number of women mediators rest on existing research in the field of women, peace, and security, which suggests that where women are included in peace processes, they create more sustainable agreements. This, among other things, mean that not only were women more physically represented, but their interests were more substantively considered in the agreements. Recognizing that Jamaica needs to employ more mediation and other tools of ADR in every area of our society, the Ministry of Justice has taken significant steps towards not only establishing the legislative framework necessary, but to also address deficits in public education on the use and benefits of ADR. Having signed the Singapore Mediation Convention in 2019, the ministry is advanced in settling the policy for the development of the law for domestic, commercial, and international mediation. Much thanks to Dr. Malcolm for his contribution towards the realization of these significant developments. It is my anticipation that today's reasoning will help me to make more convincing arguments for greater inclusion of women in mediation and for women's interests to be given significant consideration in policy and legislative development in ADR in our country. Thank you, and I hope you will enjoy the reasoning.
Thank you very much, Karen. And thank you to all the other ladies who brought greetings. I'm now very pleased to hand over this section of the program in which we will have the reasoning. This section is going to be moderated by Miss Rose Ramu, and she's the managing partner of Ramu International Law. And she will take you through the next session, which should last about 50 minutes. So over to you, Rose.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing. I think everybody is
Wonderful.
hearing it.
It is always a pleasure to be back in Jamaica. I say this even though I'm sitting in my apartment here in DC, but it's nice to be back in Jamaica because I know, but for COVID, I will be right there. So I think Malcolm, Chris Malcolm, our Secretary General, for having the vision to actually turn this wonderful program. This is the first session. I was the chair of the first one. It is a pleasure to be moderating this special one because Malcolm told me, and I have to say this, he says this could be one where we have all women. And Malcolm had the vision and I jumped on it and we put it together for you. And I hope that you will enjoy the reasoning. We will take active participation and have more questions for us. Now, I don't want to go into my own background. It's on the website. And just like the chair mentioned before, you can read about all of us. I am also a certified mediator. I am also an international arbitrator, and I'm on the board of Arbitral Women. So it's a pleasure to see our president, Dana, and our co-founder, Louis Barrington, and I. And I'm sure we have many more here as participants supporting this program. It is very special to see all of us as women. And as the chair was saying earlier, we forgive you, Malcolm, it's okay, but it's great to have you with us. And I think if Malcolm could have, I think he also wanted to have the musical treat to be a woman as well. So I say bravo to our Secretary General, because that's a wonderful thing to be thinking about how to highlight the women in mediation and the work that we do. So our reasoning, this is what's happening, we see today. This is COVID-19, we're still going through it. It's been about a year and it has brought all of us to our knees. Prior to COVID-19, I would say from my experience here in the US, if an employer wrongfully terminate an employee, the employee would likely just go to court and you get some form of money damages. So now what do you see? The employer is actually depending on some PPP, some kind of aid, and everybody's suffering. You don't see people filing those lawsuits as they would normally. People try to negotiate, conciliation, and now mediation more than ever is the best way to resolve these disputes. And we see that even at the international level, when we are talking about investor-state mediation disputes, where you see even the host states now, they are thinking, how can we go back to our relationship? How can we maintain this relationship? Because litigation could be extremely adversarial. The arbitration, there's going to be a serious award that could kind of like cause the investor to leave the state. So mediation is this opportunity for both parties to express feelings, emotions, and possibly remain friends or maintain relationship. So the idea is, now that we are here, COVID-19 brought us to our knees, so we must negotiate, we must mediate, as opposed to going to court. But as I believe Justice Pereira mentioned earlier, 58% of the mediators, at least in the Caribbean, on the roster are women. Now we have to look into how many of them are actually getting appointments. So women have played a very huge role in mediation, but we will examine whether the race, gender, national origin, or jurisdiction, what does that play when we are talking about appointments as a mediator? So I'm not going to get too deep into our topic because our experts will dive into it for us. The roadmap that I will have today, I will introduce each one of them and they will have an opportunity to give you a general statement. And then after that, I will have about 20 or 25 minutes, a discussion with them. And as I'm speaking with them, I advise you to ask any questions that you may have for them in the Q&A. And I will go back to these questions. I would leave about 10 to 15 minutes for those questions. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my first speaker, Lady Justice Joyce Aluch. Lady Justice is a former judge, vice president of the International Criminal Court at The Hague. And she was the second woman court of appeal at the High Court judge as a magistrate as well in Kenya. Since she's been retired, she returned back home and she's been involved in alternative dispute resolution mechanism, particularly mediation and arbitration. She is a certified international mediator, a certified advanced mediator, a chartered mediator, and an accredited mediator. She has co-founded Equitas Mediators and conducts mediation under the Court Annex Mediation Program in Kenya. Now, welcome, Lady Justice Joyce. And I know it's late for you in Kenya. We appreciate you. So you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's good morning in Kenya. It's just after midnight. It's in Nairobi, Kenya, just after midnight. But I'm happy to be here and to join all of you as we discuss this topic. We are all talking about mediation. And please, I acknowledge everybody who is here. I acknowledge Dame Pereira, Chief Justice. I acknowledge Professor Palmer, acknowledge the chair of Arbitral Women. I was once a member. I have to just find out what happened. Dr. Christopher Malcolm very much. Now, we are all talking about mediation, and we are all assuming that we understand, everybody understands, but some people who are tuned in might not be mediators. So I thought I would start by just defining what, according to me, mediation means for the better understanding of everybody. And I want to say that mediation is an alternative dispute resolution mechanism which is confidential, is voluntary, non-binding, and is usually conducted by a neutral third party who does not make any findings or issue any orders, because mediation is a formalized negotiation process. One important feature of mediation is that the process must be neutral and free from bias. A mediator is referred to as a neutral third party because the mediation process places the responsibility of neutrality on the mediator, who must exclude any personal and beliefs from the mediation process and assist the disputing parties to look past their rights and focus on interests, needs, concerns, and desires which underlie each party's position. Mediation process is key to the conclusive resolution of disputes. The mediator is only a facilitator. It is the mediation process that must be managed as a neutral one, requiring the mediator to be completely neutral. Given the above definition, how do issues like gender, race, and systematic bias come in the selection and treatment of neutrals? And I think that is the topic for our discussion, so I will not go into it at this time. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lady Justice Joyce Aluch, for setting the groundwork for us here. I am going to move right to Ms. Barrington, my colleague at Arbitral Women. And briefly, I'll tell you, she has over many years experience. Miss Barrington is a full independent arbitrator. Currently, she's in Asia, so we appreciate her waking up very early to join us. She's legally qualified in Ontario, Canada, New York, England, Wales, and she holds a maîtrise in, which is master's in European law from Paris 2. So that's another thing I have in common with Miss Barrington. I also have a maîtrise from Paris 2 in Paris. So let me allow her to come and give you her opening statement as related to our topic, dealing with race, gender, national origin, and mediation. Louise?
Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Christopher, and all the organizers. I'm really delighted to be part of this, and it's certainly worth waking up early for. Just very briefly, I was trained as a mediator in Hong Kong in 2001 and got accredited and on the list of the Hong Kong International Arbitration Center, which was the institution at the time that handled mediation and arbitration. And there I languished for 5 or 6 years, never got a case, never got a call. Now, to be fair, it was the very beginning of mediation in Hong Kong at the time. So it was new, it wasn't accepted by very many people. I was new, had no track record. And also the places where one would normally cut your teeth, get your first experiences, like neighborhood mediations and employment, things like that, they mostly took place in Cantonese. So fast forward 20 years, and now Hong Kong is at the very forefront of mediation, has a very modern mediation law, and you really can't get to court now without going to mediation first, because the justices took it into their own hands, being very concerned about access to justice, both because they had these terrifically long court lists, and also because it is extremely expensive here in Hong Kong to litigate. The justices said, don't come to us until you've mediated, and they've reinforced that. So now many of the people I taught mediation to 20 years ago are full-time mediators. And that means I should stop talking about myself and just say one more thing, and that is that I'm hoping that what we can talk about today is women in mediation in two ways. Women in mediation as advocates, and mediators, women as mediators and what they bring to the table. And because these two get conflated, and I think it's one of the things that is holding women back from being more successful in mediation than they are today.
Thank you, Louise. I advise you to go on the website so you could read a little bit more about the work that Louise has been engaged in. And briefly, I'll mention that she received in 2011 the CPR Diversity Award, and Louise has been teaching arbitration and mediation to students for over 15 years. And she actually created the Vis East Arbitration Moot, which is going on its 16th year. That's a very wonderful competition, and I've done my share of participating in Vienna. So thank you so much, Louise. So now I'm moving to my Caribbean sister. I say my Caribbean, for those of you who don't know, I'm from Haiti, and that's why my last name is French, Rameau. So I would welcome right now my Caribbean sister, Claire Miller, who's going to possibly put it in perspective for us in the Caribbean. We hear Justice Dame mention about 58% on the roster, they are women. But what does that, what kind of value do we give to those who are actually being appointed? So briefly, I'll introduce you. Ms. Miller is a licensed Supreme Court and Parish Court mediator and attorney at law. She practiced in Kingston, Jamaica, with experience in labor dispute, child custody, matrimonial property disputes, medical malpractice, personal injury, and disputes of estates. She has a successful track record in facilitating neutral, non-biased negotiation in legal disputes. She's an expert in utilizing problem-solving techniques to discuss options and reach logical solutions that satisfy all parties. So, Ms. Miller, you do have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madame Rose. And I'm so happy and thrilled to be here too. I acknowledge all my sisters from all over the world and my brothers too. And kudos to Christopher Malcolm, my brother at law, for having us here and arranging all of this. I'm so passionate about mediation. I'm so excited that we're going to be having this kind of discussion because I think it's timely and it's just so well needed. Conflict does exist. We can't say no, but women really and truly ought to be at the forefront of any kind of conflict solutions. We know that, women are not always highly regarded, unfortunately, but we are central. We're always central to peace building and finding solutions for conflict. When you think about it, we are natural caregivers. We are natural nurturers. We are the backbone of our families. We are the ones who carry the babies. So I can't see how we cannot be a part of, the whole conflict resolution. We're always left out, unfortunately, or usually. Things are changing a bit, but not enough and not as fast as I think we would like. And all because of the bias that exists, as my sisters have spoken about. There is bias. It is real. I have experienced it. I thank Christopher for having me be a part of this because I had to delve a little more. And in asking questions, my goodness, I just really cannot believe, where we're at in terms of bias. We really need to be moving away from this now. So I'm hoping that with the discussion here and the sharing, we can find ways and share ideas of exactly how to do that. In Jamaica and in the Caribbean, I would say, yes, there is a race issue, but I'd say there's more a status issue than a race issue. We more have a gender bias issue that is also real and will be spoken of more deeply when we're having our discussion. But I would just like to say that we as women, we have to bond together. We cannot ignore the barriers of that. We cannot allow bias, to be a barrier for our involvement. We have to keep at it and band together in doing that. So that's my 1 minute or my 1.5 minutes. And we will speak more, as I said, everybody getting an opportunity to share.
Thank you so much, Claire. Now, we say usually we save the best for last. So now, Miss Judith Nipper. Now, I usually see Judith when I am in Austria at the Uncentral from time to time. And COVID-19 has caused us, or at least me, when I'm going to Uncentral sessions, to see her, just a glimpse of her via video. So today it's very nice to see her a little bit more up close and personal. And I call her Dr. Nipper. I know she doesn't care about the title, but she has a PhD from Germany. And Judith is a legal consultant with over 28 years of professional experience. She has been working in Southeast Europe from 1998 to 2013 for numerous donors such as the World Bank and GIS and whatever German word I cannot pronounce. Judith will help me with that. And she conducted 2 regional projects in the area of the CISG, Alternative Dispute Resolution, or GIS. She is currently working for Uncentral as legal officer in Vienna, Austria, and she's responsible for Uncentral transparency standards. So Judith, I'll give you the floor so you can give us your opening remarks. Where do you see us in our topic regarding race, gender, and national origin as it comes to mediation? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rose, and thank you very much to Rose and to Christopher for this invitation and for giving me the opportunity to speak from the perspective of Uncentral. So I'm last because on the one side, I have maybe this UNCITRAL has this broad perspective as we are operating in the framework of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and SDG number 5, which relates to gender equality. But on the other hand, we have a much more narrow approach because we are dealing, UNCITRAL is the core legal body in the area of international trade law. So we are very much focused on setting standards, harmonizing and modernizing international trade law. And this webinar is very timely from our perspective because we are currently in the process of modernizing our mediation texts. So by way of introduction, I wanted to make 3 points, and all of them have already been mentioned. One is on biases, and that probably relates very much to gender inclusive language. So what we try to do, and there's a change in the approach, in our UNCITRAL conciliation rules from 1980, we use the term conciliation and mediation interchangeably. So in these rules from 1980, we still refer to the mediator as being a he, which you would agree with me is not very gender inclusive to use a gendered pronoun when referring to a generic noun. So this is changed now. We have a more modern approach, and we try to be really careful to use gender inclusive language, not only in our legal text, but also in our reports. The second point I wanted to make, and many mentioned it already, diversity of mediators. We heard that you have large numbers of mediators, of female being in rosters as mediators, but not being selected properly. So our UNCITRAL approach would be in the notes to ask the selecting authorities to pay attention to the aspect of diversity when selecting and appointing a mediator. For us, diversity is not only related to gender, but also to geographic diversity. So this is included explicitly in the draft mediation rules, and they will be in front of the Commission for adoption in July. So we do hope that we have then a more modern text. The third point is, and that has also been said already, is mediation is an approach that is particularly flexible, cost and time efficient. So we do suppose that it's particularly suitable for dispute concerning MSMEs. And MSMEs are to a large extent owned by women. So we do suppose that an enabling mediation framework would in particularly benefit women. And this is why we do indeed very much welcome Jamaica as a signatory of the United Nations Convention on Mediation, also known as the Singapore Convention. So this is certainly, from our perspective, a positive sign. And that also relates to the situation we are in. We had some experts at the Commission session last year, and it was highlighted by the gender experts that in the informal sector, which was particularly hit by COVID, women are again largely overrepresented, and mediation, being a tool that is not expensive, that is particularly flexible, might be particularly beneficial to women using this additional tool to solve their disputes. So these were the 3 points I wanted to make with regard to mediation. Maybe one word, because it has been mentioned several times already. We indeed have a working group 3, which is dealing with investor-state dispute settlement reform. In that context, Arbitral Women is, by the way, one NGO that is accredited in these negotiations. And there, the topic of diversity of arbitrators is very much on the agenda. And I would even say that we reach kind of consensus that diversity or the lack of diversity is an issue that needs to be addressed in these reform options. And with that, I would like to give it back to Rose. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Judith. Now we're going to get to the meat. We're going to be up close and personal. So I will say to the participants, as this session is being recorded and it will be made available subsequently. And as for our speakers, it will be up to you if you want to present personal views. So it's a round table. We are going to be quite relaxed about it. So my very first question, to get into the meat of our discussions, and I was very pleased to hear the statistics from Justice Dame. And she indicated that in the Caribbean, 58% of the mediators are women. So now my questions to us, to the panelists, whichever one of you want to take the lead. Does gender and race play a role in getting appointments as a mediator? And are parties influenced by that? And are there any conscious or unconscious bias with clients or representative or even the institutions in the selection process? So any one of you may take the lead.
Well, I'll start by saying definitely yes. I think everybody's heard about unconscious bias now. It's a bandwagon that many people have jumped on, but it's certainly a factor, not only for women, although that's what we tend to concentrate on with arbitral women, but also racially, ethnically, geographically. A lot of women are getting mediation work now. I've noticed a huge change over the 20 years that I've been doing this, but they're still not getting the big ones. They're not getting the big commercial ones. They're getting the ones, the cases, the neighborhood cases, the educational cases, the labor cases, and of course, family work, because that's the kind of work that women are uniquely suited for in people's minds. And so we tend, as I said at the outset, to be looked at as women there to represent women and women's interests, where rather than as women who are neutrals, who are trying to facilitate an agreement, which may include women's interests. It's very difficult to separate those two. I think we need to think about that.
Okay. So are you saying, Louis, that women are already at the forefront of mediation, but the race and the gender biases are causing them not to get the appointments?
I wouldn't say at the forefront. I think that women have been at the very beginning, in mediation since the very beginning, yes. But they do tend to get elbowed aside by men who feel somehow that they are more qualified or are considered by society to be more qualified to do the important cases, the big ticket cases.
And you see, I wonder, because during my practice mediation in New Jersey, I would say I saw more women than ever. And now listening to, having more experience in mediation, because this has been like ages. So I assume the reason we were seeing more women is because these were small cases and not the big ones. So I wonder how that's going to play in the future, because now we are talking, as Ms. Nipper mentioned, the Working Group 3 ISDS reform, and there was a consensus with all the states that they would like to entertain mediation. So we are going to be talking about investor state mediation. So that's for another day, another topic. but it's very interesting to think how are they going to position women, because we do have a lot of women mediators. So is that going to be, those women will also need to be skilled in investor disputes in order for them to get those appointments. Justice Aloch, I think you were about to say something.
Yes. I wanted to, I think it's Louise Barrington who made a point about women getting small briefs. And I want to say from the point of view of where I am, of Africa, and particularly my country, I want to start by saying that many traditional African societies are patrilineal and as such, they tend to overlook the role of women. This was, right from the beginning. But then things changed. And 2 days ago, I was talking to a woman mediator in Nigeria, and in Kampala and in Kenya. And they seemed to give me more or less the same answers in the sense that women came to the field of ADR much later after the men. And the woman with the longest experience in ADR in Kenya is today. I was speaking to her in the afternoon. She has 29 years. And she said by the time she came to ADR field, arbitration mediation, it was a field of men. And even those who coached her were men, because there were no women. So what they were telling me is, because I was in the other field, I was in the justice field, being the second woman in this country. So I had to talk to women who are in ADR. What they were telling me is that, listen, we got to this field when men were already there. And so some of the ADR institutions, when they have big cases, when they have big disputes, they look for experienced mediators. And who then are the experienced mediators? They are men. So they were telling me that they don't, in fact, I talked to practitioners, I talked to an institute, and they told me we don't particularly look for men, but we are looking for experience. And when you go down the list, we find that the most experienced happens to be a man, because men were in this field earlier. So this is something that I hope will come with time, so that when we are looking for experience, then women are also there. But I know a lady, Funke from Nigeria. I know Funke has a lot of, she's about 40 something years experience. So a woman like that would normally be appointed if experience is what they're truly looking for. That's what I want to say.
We have a lot of Funke.
Yeah.
Funke Adekoya or Funke? We have a lot of Funke.
Yes.
Adekoya.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I know Ms. Adekoya. Okay.
Yeah.
To follow up on that.
Miller.
Sorry.
Yes, Miller.
Yes, right. I was saying, to follow up on what Louise and Madam Joyce have just said. In Jamaica as well, in Jamaica, we have we have two levels of mediators. We have at the lower level, we call it the parish court level, and then we talk about Supreme Court level mediators. I'm particularly speaking about the Supreme Court level mediators at this point, wherein when I checked, we have about 68 Supreme Court mediators, and about 46 of them are women. And even with that, there is still, of that lot, about 10 to 15 people that are usually chosen. And I think there is still a balance there of men and women that are kind of equally chosen. But I agree with what Louise is saying, in that when the women are usually chosen, it's not the big matters. It's not necessarily those of national interest. It is usually at the family level, the labor level, the small briefs, as you would call them. And I do believe that when people are looking for mediators here, whether it's a man or a woman, though, they also look for experience, you know, and Cherise here, Golding Campbell, who is also a mediator. I'm not sure if that's her experience, but certainly when I started to ask the questions, the women are still getting the small briefs, you know, so, you know, you wonder, how do we get around all that? You know, what is it? Is it still the boys' club that is going on? You know?
Well, I have a little anecdote to go back to what Miss Karen in her address mentioned earlier when she saw the current VP of the United States being of Jamaican descent. There was one thing, if you watch the whole inaugural session, there was one thing that was striking, was to have this young lady, 22-year-old Amanda Gorman, come in and take the stage and recite a poem. Normally, we've all watched it before. It used to be my favorite poet. She died now. The name escaped me, but it's normally wouldn't be a young woman. So I think the problem is the fact that the idea that Justice Aloch mentioned, that experience, they usually say the men are experienced. So how are you going to look for women who are experienced if you don't appoint them? How are you going to look for Black women, women of color who are experienced if you don't give them the opportunity? Today, America would not have known Amanda Gorman, so young and so talented, if somebody didn't give her that opportunity. And I think it's very important when we are thinking about appointments to think outside of the box, because women, we have great skills. And if you think about it, we are mediating in our home between our husband and our children. And
all the time.
It is what we do. And therefore, our name cannot be in some kind of roster and not get the appointment. So we need, and that's what conversation like this is very important, and the work that we do, so that we can think about of ways so that we are not left behind. And I say this again, since I'm an international arbitrator, women have been left behind in international arbitration. And when now we have all said been done, when we have our reform with Ancestral Working Group 3, we have international investor state mediation. I do not want or wish to see women be left behind, because we are already skilled at the work. We've been doing it. And therefore, there is no reason not to give women opportunities. Then again, it goes back to who has the power, who's doing the appointment. There's a lot of things, involved. So, with that, I would like to say, now we're here. Okay, fine. Maybe you get lucky. You're one of the 12% in the club. You are appointed. So they let you in. You are of color and you are a woman. Are you being treated differently because of your gender or race? And how do you know that? Any of you can take this one.
Wow, as you said, in Jamaica, how do we know if we're being treated differently? As I said, there's kind of a balance right now in terms of the men and the women who are usually treated. So I'm not sure how we would find out whether or not that is what governs. Because we're a small country, I mean, we're just a little under 3 million. People are kind of familiar with people. In terms of the Supreme Court mediations here, what really happens is that I think attorneys tend to choose attorneys or people who they're familiar with or people who they heard about. It's not so much, gender at that point. So so
it's who you know.
It's who you know. It's the familiarity.
So
but at the same time, right, it's a club. So at the same time, I'm saying, like you, Rose, how do we get those people who are not known to be known? They have to get some kind of exposure. And this is where I think the referral agencies come in to play. Because when you send a matter through our court system, If you do not choose a mediator within a particular time frame, then the referral agency is supposed to choose one for you. And I think it's at that point in time that they ought to expose those, those who are just coming in, or those who have no experience at all. We have to get them exposed. The only way they're going to get experience is if they have an opportunity to show what they have, So I think the referral agencies could play a part there,
Oh,
Claire, can I come in? Hi, Rose. I just want to come in because Claire, you mentioned my sharing of the experience, and I want to endorse what you're saying, but also I think we have to be very deliberate in how we try to expose our female mediators who may not be experienced, or who are new and coming into the profession, in recent, just coming into the profession new. And one of the ways I think we can do that is, one, to take a look at how we appoint, particularly in Jamaica, as Claire was talking about with the blind referral system. If you haven't chosen a mediator, let us look at how we appoint. And I agree the referral agency has an important role to play. If you have 20 mediators on your roster who have not had an appointment in a year or 2 years, there must be some sort of empirical way you can take a look at who these appointments are going to, these random appointments, and ensure that everybody on the roster is given a chance to expose themselves as a mediator and develop their experience. We can't do it, it can't just be by the wayside. It has to be a deliberate effort.
Thank you. I guess you are switching it to the institutions. That opened the door for me to ask Judith, in what way is, obviously UNCITRAL can't really force anyone to appoint but they could have the documents, they could have the framework, and they could share it with Jamaica, with Haiti, with all of us around the world. So I don't know, I'd like to give her an opportunity, perhaps, if she has any comment as to the drafting and how she sees it.
I mean, UNCITRAL is the international community, so whatever they decide and whatever measures they think would be appropriate, that's what they have to decide. And I think everyone is seeing in the room that the institutions have to play a part, because changing the habits of parties of appointing always the same people seems to be very obvious. So that I think many government officials see the need that something needs to change, and maybe UNCITRAL as well is changing. I had a look. If you look 10 years ago, we had the working groups, and the chairs were nearly always men, and they are having the role of a mediator among all the different states. They need to coordinate the discussion. They need to try to find a consensus to come to a legal instrument at the very end. Today we have 6 working groups, and in 3 working groups we have a male chair, and in 3 working groups we have a female chair. So there is definitely a development. And coming back to the question you had before, I would think that these chairs are all treated alike. It's the function once they have the function, they are treated with the same respect. They are treated with the same. I cannot observe any kind of different treatment once someone has been elected as a chair. Okay. So that might, but how UNCITRAL is going to do it in working group 3, this is too early to say, because we are having all the reform options on the table now, and we need to see what states are deciding and where we are going to.
Okay. Now, if I word in on behalf of the institutions, I worked for the ICC many years ago, at which time no one even thought about counting the women. Well, you could, because you could see there were only 2 or 3. But there's been a huge progress there in the institutions. It was slow in coming, but once they got on the bandwagon and realized that it was actually to say that you had parity or were working towards parity, it's that the institutions have been very good. And the way they're doing it is by consciously seeking out not only women, but different geographical representation, ethnic representation, people of color, whatever. And they are doing a pretty good job of looking for people and sometimes giving them their first cases. If they can find small cases, then they will try to do that. Again, as Judith mentioned, though, because it's an international arbitration, you've got different people from different countries, and they don't always agree on the right way to proceed. But I think the institutions have helped tremendously, and we can keep counting on them.
And I think events like the one today also do help, because you have kind of exposure, you have kind of networking, even if it's only virtually. I would prefer to have the Jamaican coffee in person with you and not drink it alone here in the dining room. So all of these events also do help, and you have much more exposure from very diverse people. And you could see that in our room. People are much more diverse than they were before.
I just want to follow up with what Louise says about ICC seated in France. And since I've worked in France and I'm licensed to practice there, and one thing that I know that France and the rest of Europe, they have very strict rules with regards to privacy. Now in the US, we can get the data faster. Like we can give you a form which says, you know, what's your sex, what's your gender, and then we can have a disclosure. We say it's optional, but it's there. However, in France, from what I understand, they are not likely to ask you these questions because of privacy issues. So how do you bridge the gap? How do you determine, how do you really try to be intentional to go after? They say, well, you know, we've always appointed people from the Caribbean, for instance, but there's some Caribbean states that are not represented. How do you intentionally go after these states? How do you get that mediator from Jamaica, from Haiti, or from anywhere in the Caribbean or in Africa if you're not being intentional?
Okay.
You need to be intentional.
Can I make a comment on?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you mentioned Africa, and I wanted to bring to the table the African Union on what they have done. And African Union has got 5 member states, and they have what is called FemWise Africa. It's a network of African women in conflict prevention and mediation. It was officially established through a decision of the African Union heads of states in July of 2017. And what does the network do? The network aims to strengthen the role of women in conflict prevention and mediation efforts by providing a platform for strategic advocacy, capacity building, and networking. This is within Africa. And I thought this was very deliberate on the part of the African Union, so that it has priorities such as ensuring a panel of women's meaningful and effective participation in peace process, including heads of official high-level mediation missions. Those are some of the duties, the responsibilities that it has. It's been on, it's going on. I'm just about to join, because they are looking for African women mediators so that they can give them responsibilities, they can expose them within the 55 member states of the African Union. I thought I should mention that.
It's wonderful. Yeah. Claire, did you
Excellent.
hands? You had something to add?
No. Okay. No, but I'm happy to hear about that initiative. It's really wonderful that,
Yeah.
that Madam Joyce just mentioned. Excellent.
Thank you.
Great. Now, the question that I would want to talk about a little bit is with respect to the nationality. I guess if you look at mediation from at an international mediation, have you noticed that the nationality play a factor as to, would they appoint you because you're from Canada? More than likely than they would appoint someone else who's from a different country. I don't know. So I would ask that, do you think that the nationality plays a factor, whether positive or negative? Then again, I'd like to go back to Louis's statement earlier, making a distinction between mediators as advocates and mediators as being appointed by the parties. So where do you see the nationality playing positive or negative factor?
I don't know whether nationality itself is that important, other than the contacts. If there's a really flourishing mediation community, then people know that, well, there are probably lots of good experienced mediators there. If you're in a country where mediation doesn't happen much, you're going to have a much harder job to get yourself known. And if people don't know about you, they are not going to pick you. They're not going to go and say, oh, I think I'll have a Nigerian arbitrator. Let's see if I can find somebody. It's not how it works.
No.
So everybody has the same opportunity. Doesn't matter where you're from. I guess now we would be looking more at competence, like Justice Aluich mentioned in Kenya, when they were looking for the experience. I guess I am equating that for competence as well. So they would normally go to a male to be appointed. Correct?
I don't think I said they would go to for a male.
Okay.
They would be saying, we are looking for experience. And when we go down the list that they had, they found that the sort of experience they were looking for, the number of years and the field, they tended to be finding men.
So how do we get the women to be appointed? How do we give them that opportunity? Like Louis was saying earlier, the institutions, they are helping. They could even give these women their first case. How do we break that ceiling? How do we do that? I guess that's what I'd like us to really talk about.
It has to be deliberate,
Sorry.
I think. Sorry. I'm just saying that it has to be a deliberate effort on the part of the institutions to give women a chance. Once the women are qualified, they have the skills of they have trained, they have skills. I think the institutions have to give them a chance. That's what I think. Yeah.
But institutions can change a little. It's the parties who have to change. And that's for both also mediation and for arbitration, because the big cases are still normally party appointed. And this is still you have some appointments by institution, some selections by institution, but this is not the norm.
Yeah.
So it's the parties who should really, and you have change. You have changes because it's private parties notice enterprises. They have to. They are accountable in front of their shareholders, and the shareholders start asking, but who are the arbitrators you're appointing, who are the mediators, and via that you might also have a change. But this is very slow. But I think crucial is still the parties need to change.
Well, there I think.
And to add to that, sorry, Louise.
I was just going to say, this is where the unconscious bias comes in, and not only unconscious, but also conscious bias. And I think that that's where education and training can help. That being said, it's limited unless it's done from the top. It needs to be people that have the power to establish priorities, who will make diversity and inclusion part of the priorities of their management strategy. And
Yeah.
I think we have to get to the top and show them about unconscious bias and how to deal with it.
Louis,
And in addition to that,
do you have numbers from
sorry.
the mood?
Do I have numbers from the mood?
The students participating in the mood, you have more female. Normally they are better in both the Wismut, the East Wismut and the normal Wismut, and then so they have the training, and the mood, we probably all do agree that going through the mood is a very intensive training.
Mm-hmm.
And still after the mood something happens that they do not continue their career as they started off.
Yeah. Well, I think that the mood does give people an edge, but people have to know about that. It doesn't open the doors. It just makes it a little easier to get in once you've got the door open.
My experience has, when I look at mediation, it has been more like, it was, at least when I was in school, the mood was for arbitration. It was never for mediation. Mm-hmm. It's great to see now you have ICC, you have different mediation, or the AAA, you have different, in Hofstra as well, have different mood competition for mediation. But back in my days, it was more arbitration. Now, going back with the training, the capacity building, like for instance, Arbitral Women has this mentorship program. Now, I don't know to what extent that the mentors are doing mentorship as to mediation, but I know that we support women once they become members, and you know, every year, I believe, you know, what we do, we match those new young dispute resolution practitioners, for a better word. We would pair them with mentors who help them along the way. And mentorship for me, it's a two-way street. So it depends on what the mentee is expecting, and then where the mentor is, and they work together. And that has worked well. I have mentored many individuals myself, and I think and that's why Arbitral Women, the work that we do is very important. Now, with respect to the institutions, just like Judith mentioned, we cannot dictate, the institutions will not be able to do that work. They can have some rules, they could have some kind of language to encourage gender equality and all that, but ultimately it's going to be the parties in terms of investor states is going to be the Caribbean states or the African state or the European states. And if they are looking at the roster of arbitration or mediation and they are looking for experience, they are going to pick whoever they see fit. And I think what we can do as women is to continue those kind of association with Arbitral Women and other institutions and try to come together and build our capacity as women and get the exposure. And one way to get our name out there, at least I try to do, is by writing. Like one other example is also seeing who's giving you that first shot, that opportunity. And when they give it to you, do a good job at it.
And also,
yes.
before COVID, as we all went to conferences, we had to go attend conferences and network. But now we have to network online via Zoom. But networking is also very, very important. Throwing yourself out there, networking is important.
Yes, I would say, Rose, one way, if I could jump in, sorry.
Claire, please, we always talk at the same time, Claire. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know why. So sorry. Yeah, I was going back to what Rose had said, because I have wanted to speak also about the mentorship. I think the mentorship is an excellent idea, especially here for us in Jamaica. I think anybody coming on board, we can do it for the women. I know we're all about gender here, but I know there are some men online. And I just think that the exposure is key. And as you said, Rose, when you get when you expose them, for them to do a job well done, it would also speak to the training. So going back to the institutions or the persons who are doing the training of mediators, we have to make sure not everybody can be a mediator. Yes, everybody can be trained, but not everybody can be a mediator. It does require special skills, and we have to stop just training people and then putting them on a roster because they've completed the hours. We really have to look at that, because when everybody's at the same level and the same standard, there's no doubt that you can be chosen, just like how we don't choose judges here. When you go to court, you just turn up and you just know that Rose is going to be your judge or Louise is going to be your judge. And we perhaps need to get to that point, but training is critical. We have to make sure, if we're getting there, that people are competent in doing what they're doing. If not, we're going to go back to the same thing. Well, the same 5 or the same 10 or the same whatever, that's who we're going to be using. So that's also very important. And just very quickly, to go back to the point about nationality, I actually asked a friend in London who was she was about to have a mediation. Mediation was coming up for her. And she is Black Jamaican with locks. And I said to her, how do you choose a mediator? What do you look for? And believe it or not, for her, she is first and foremost going to go with color. That was, and if race is there, she would do that. She would do that too. And of course, nationality. If the person is from the Caribbean, that's where she's going first, because she feels that, they would understand where she's coming from. So, and that's in England. So it does, play a part. As I said, we have it here, but not so much because we're kind of a smaller community. But internationally, I'm sure it's right there at the top where people are looking on color and race and gender and everything coupled.
I'm going back to Louis. I think, Louis, you had a comment you wanted to make. And also while I'm at you, I wanted to talk a little bit about the diversity toolkit that I know you've been training different institutions and companies, and talk to us a little bit about that. And because I think it's well stated what the toolkit, how the toolkit can help in and help them not being to eliminate biases in the form of appointment and how they go by selecting the mediators. I'm not sure if you do it for mediators or if it's for arbitrators. So I think this is very important, something that you could highlight as well.
I'd like to mention 3 initiatives that I think have been very, very useful and very positive. The first one is Catherine Rogers' Arbitrator Intelligence, which gives people access to information about arbitrators, how they are perceived by the people who have been in front of them and who have worked with them. So that's not necessarily at the entry level, but it's something which does allow women to have a platform where they are available. So anyone who says, I couldn't find a woman arbitrator, can start with one of these platforms. So Arbitrator Intelligence is one. Catherine Simpson last year did an amazing thing because she saw that the panels being named by governments to be dispute resolution people for treaties were mostly men. And she called them out on it and has actually started a movement, and there's been terrific progress there. Now, whether that translates, when it translates into more mediations and arbitrations, I'm not sure, but it's going to happen, I think. And the third is arbitral women, of course. the profiles which are available to, members of Arbiter Women have a profile. So as Dana mentioned, if you're looking for somebody with a specific talent, language, nationality, whatever, you can go and just search it that way on Arbiter Women's platform. And we also have mentoring and things where women are helping women, other women. Specifically, the toolkit is a one-day program which goes through from where we are, how far we've come, and why we can't stop now. The obstacles which are still there, mostly unconscious bias. We talk about how unconscious bias works, but then also what we try to do is talk about how we can work with our own unconscious bias to deal with it. You can't get rid of it, but you can deal with it. You can be aware of it and then deal with it. And then looking to see how we can work with the unconscious bias around us to make it a more positive and inclusive environment. The message, of course, is that this is like a diet. You go on a diet, you lose the weight, and then you start eating ice cream again, and you put the weight back on. This requires behavioral change. And that means continuity. It means changing your habits and changing the way you think of things. So it's not something you can do in a day. And that's one of the things we're thinking about with the toolkit is how to keep that up, how to continue that so that people do keep coming back and really changing their habits for good.
If I could just interrupt right here, Rose, I'm looking at the time.
I was about to just go and take some questions. I have like 3 or 4 questions from the audience. It's about to do that.
Because our next activities, the vote of thanks, which should have been at 5:30. So we're going to be running a little late. I just wanted you to know that. I've been looking at the questions, the comments that have been raised. I think that for the most part, the panelists might have responded to most of them. Most of them were asking questions about how do we get the experience, how do people know who we are, that we are available. I myself was one of the first persons trained in mediation in Jamaica, and because of all the various things I have done in my life, I have not done many mediations, but I am a court-appointed mediator. So now I'm retired. I'm wondering, how do I get myself out there that people know that I am now available and I can be a mediator? So I know that a lot of persons have asked that question. That is the concern, because we really are supposed to be talking about how do we get over the systemic bias and selection and treatment of neutrals. That's mostly us. So if we could just quickly do some of the some answers to the questions so we can move on, I would appreciate it. Back over to you, Rose.
I think you've already asked the first question. Any of the panelists who would like to answer that question, how do they get their name out there, would be great.
That's
Well,
the question of the questions.
Go ahead, Judith.
No, that's the most difficult question. I think events like this one, and you need to see where there are rosters, how to apply for these rosters. So the usual what you need to do in arbitration as well. I think it's very much alike, mediation and arbitration. Go on the roster of arbitral women to get participate in events and alike.
There's a question from Lydia. She says, with the development of online communication, how do we see opportunities also developing for the recruitment of persons at the international level, and whether the model law by UNCITRAL would address this new development? That would be you again, Judith.
I'm not sure I understood the question. How the model law?
She says, how do we see opportunities developing at the recruitment of person at the international level, and whether the model law by UNCITRAL would address this development?
Not really, because we are the model law on mediation addresses the procedure, the mediation procedure, and addresses the question of enforceability. So it's not really on the mediators. We are not having international standards on what kind of what the or educational standards. This is not something we have been dealing with.
Okay. I think most of the questions have been answered. There was a comment that was made in the chat, which I cannot locate, by Barry Leon. I think Dr. Malcolm mentioned it to me. If Barry, if you are there and want to come up and make that comment, we welcome it. And if not, I will go back to Madam Chair and let her take control of the rest of the session.
May I just make one last point?
Yes.
And that is that we have an internship program, and there we really stick to geographic and gender representation and balance. So for everyone who is interested in doing an internship at UNCITRAL, which might help because it's a very well-known institution in the area of dispute resolution. So we have job openings twice a year, in December and in June, July. And we offer internships for 2 months. So that might be something to get further experience and knowledge.
Would that also be virtual, Judith? Would it be virtual due to COVID? Would this internship be also virtual?
Yeah, for the time being, we offer it in a virtual format as well, which is less attractive because you learn less. I mean, it's much nicer to be in Vienna and to see the working group in action and not only on the screen. But we try our best to make it interesting.
But one point, Judith, regarding the internship, when I was in Africa, I was trying to get some of my students to come to Vienna for those internships. The problem is they didn't have a scholarship to help them with Women Board, and it's not paid. It's an internship. So that's why I jumped and said, is it virtual? Because it is virtual. We know one of the icing we've gotten lately because of the pandemic, we have more people able to participate because they don't have to travel. They don't have to go pay rent in Austria, or, that's an opportunity.
No, for the time being, we do offer it also in a virtual format. And we have the same number of applications before COVID and now. We just closed the procedure and we had 150 applications. So this is the normal figure.
Okay. I think that answers a question which had been asked earlier on, and I just saw somebody ask about how do they apply for internships. So I'm wondering, Judith, if you could post the information.
Yes, I will do.
For people to get that. So thank you very much, everyone. It was a very, very interesting discussion. And I know that you answered a lot of questions that persons might have. And I look forward to our being able to continue this discussion in some other format, if not necessarily in a similar one to this. So thank you very much. And now I want to pass you on to Senator Shireen Golden Campbell, who is an attorney at law. She's an independent mediator and an arbitrator. And she was recently appointed to the Senate in Jamaica, and she sits on the board of the Development Bank of Jamaica, and she sits on 2 subcommittees. So she has a wealth of knowledge in commercial law, family law, wills, estate, legislative law, policy, and public policy development. So may I turn you over for the vote of thanks from Senator Shireen Golden Campbell. And right after Shireen speaks, we have it. You could never be involved in a conference in Jamaica without enjoying some Jamaican music. And we have with us Dwayne Stevenson, who is a musician. Dwayne was born in Kingston, and he was one of the original singers in the band, which was called Twices, for 10 years before beginning his solo career in 2005. He has released a number of albums and single. And when you hear him, you will understand why Patricia Machino commented on his album, his 6 essential albums, heralding rock and resurgent in 2018. She commented that it was beautifully nuanced vocals and heartfelt lyrics. So right after Shireen speaks and gives the vote of thanks, we will have Dwayne Stevenson, a musician who will entertain us in true Jamaican style. Shireen, over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Ambassador Aluna Samba, and thank you to the panelists and to everyone who participated. This was an exciting and interesting discussion from Professor Opal Adessa Palmer's welcome to us, pointing us in the direction of the importance of the participation of women in the mediation space. And moving to Dame Janice Pereira, our Chief Justice at the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, who gave a startling revelation about the number of mediators on the roster and compared that to those who were being selected. And that definitely pointed our discussion as well. Dana McGrath gave us a little bit about arbitral women and talked to us about how the kind of work that arbitral women is doing. And I think in our discussion, that was definitely something that I think those mediators who are looking for mentorship opportunities, for guidance, for more exposure, ought to look at joining arbitral women. Karen Wilson, who was the attorney at law at an attorney at law and director of legal services at the Ministry of Justice, highlighted the work that the ministry was doing in terms of the legislative framework around mediation in Jamaica. Rose, thank you so much for that excellent moderation of the panel and keeping the questions interesting and keeping them going. Race, gender, national origin, and the impact it has on the appointment of female mediators. It's an important topic, and I'm so happy that we had the opportunity to have this discussion with the panelists, Justice Joyce Aluwach and Louise Barrington. Thank you so much. Claire Miller, my sister and fellow mediator here in Jamaica. Dr. Judith Nipper, thank you so very much for your contributions today. You gave us a lot to think about in terms of what we have to do in terms of exposing women in mediation and ensuring our seat at the table. The work that UNCITRAL is doing in particular in ensuring the diversity in the selection and appointment of mediators, using gender inclusive language, selecting mediators in relation to the diversity of gender and geography, and looking at mediation in disputes involving MSMEs. I thought that was an important point to highlight, because indeed most MSMEs are women, are female owned. I say just a few final points on that. I have never been told, nor have I ever seen where women have been invited to any table. And so as the panelists, I think, underscored in their comments, if women are to be seen at the forefront of mediation and arbitration, if we are to claim our seat at the table, we have to push the door open, because nobody answers the knock, or it takes a long time sometimes before the knocks are answered. So I just want to encourage all of us to just think of it in that way. I want to thank also Dr. Malcolm and his team who organized this event with these exciting, informative, and interesting women. The Jamaica International Arbitration Center, Dr. Christopher Malcolm, Nordia Henry, his marketing and communications, Marlon Griffiths, Akeem Wilson, Tamika Campbell, Denise Erkin-Jones, and everyone at the Jamaica International Arbitration Center who made this possible today. We started on time. The prep to it was very organized. Thank you so very much. We want to also thank the local, regional, and international supporting institutions who continue to support the efforts of the Jamaica International Arbitration Center and the work of arbitration and mediation. Want to thank, most importantly, our sponsors, the Caribbean Development Bank, ADB Consultants, Jamaica Standard Products, Chris Malcolm, Dispute Management Practitioner, Island Blue Jamaica Mountain Coffee, Caribbean Producers Jamaica Limited, JDIC, Jamaica Deposit Insurance Corporation, Money Musk Rums, Arbitral Women, who both sponsored and gave us invaluable contribution. Thank you. TADS and COK Sodality Cooperative Credit Union. Thank you so very much. And let me not forget our fantastic chair, Ambassador Alun Asamba. Thank you so much for chairing this event. Thanks to everyone for attending this event and for the contributions that you have all made. Want to thank our media partners, Hype TV, Loop, and Trend Media Limited. And before I go, I just want to mention that the next event in this series will be held on April 14th this year. And that event is going to be entitled Financing Development in Emerging Economies, Policy, Investment, and Dispute Resolution. So I am pretty sure, based on Dr. Malcolm's track record, that it will be an exciting and informative discussion. Thank you all so very much for your participation. I wish you all a good night, a good morning, a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Shireen. And now let us listen to Dwayne Stevenson. You are in for a treat, those of you who are not Jamaicans and who might not have heard Dwayne before. Chris, do you know what is happening with Dwayne? Oh my. Don't go, don't go, don't go. I'm sure he'll be coming on shortly. Okay. I think he's on the screen now. Oh, it's gone. They might be having a little bit of technical difficulties. If I could sing, I would sing for you myself. But Claire.
Blessed love world via the internet. I'm doing Stevenson from Augustown.
Well, there it is now.
And we're here today to take you to a journey through life via music. It's amazing. So rocking, tune in. Come in and listen now. Rest. God alone, God alone. You alone can save us. Yeah. Rastafari and I. Please won't you hear me when I cry? Send out your angels just to save us from Babylon. Oh, Rastafari and I. Please won't you hear me when I cry? I cannot face this trial alone. Rasta wield the sword of God alone. Can't say we never see no evil when we see all of the youths them a die. Can't say we never hear the gunshot, tears fall from my eyes. People are fall like rain, seems we immune to the pain. These are the days things get up, God lights them afraid. Rastafari and I. Please won't you hear me when I cry? Send down the rain just to save us. When Babylon are trying to enslave us, Rastafari and I. Please won't you hear me when I cry? I cannot face this trial alone. Rasta wheel the sword of God alone. Out on road, no discipline. Man, I live with no care within. Young girl, I bleach for try fitting. Young boy, I try more fancy king. These are the signs of the times. Me a pre-revelation in mind. Oh, come on, David. Grab your shield and follow me line. Rastafari, die. Please won't you hear me when I cry. Send down the angels just to save us from Babylon. Oh, Rastafari, die. Please won't you hear me when I cry. I cannot face this run alone. Rasta will the sword. Oh, Rastafari, die. Set us free. Send your angels down. Oh, Rastafari, die. Please won't you hear me when I cry. I cannot face this run alone. Rasta will the sword. Rastafari, die. Please won't you hear me when I cry. Send down your angels just to save us from Babylon. Rastafari, set us free. Set us free. God alone. Yeah, blessed love, you know. Years ago, when I was going to Tivoli Garden High School, you know, I wrote my first song. Back then, the inspiration was the life. But, you know what I'm saying? Through hard times and struggle come the greatest inspiration and the greatest strength. The song is for the suffering man. For the suffering man. From day to day we live, searching for our identity, while the rich man says we're a menace to society. They don't know what it's like, what it's really like, what it's really like to face real ghetto pain, to face real ghetto pressure, oh, real ghetto pain, real ghetto pressure, yeah. On and on we go, our heads we try to uphold. Our brothers turn to crime, killing each other for a dime. While the oppressors them say that turning to politics, it's the only way. We face real ghetto pain, we face real ghetto pressure, oh, real ghetto pain. This is a suffering song. Oh. One day, the table will turn, and to all men out there, beware for our barriers will burn. On and on we go, our heads we try to uphold. Brothers turn to crime, fighting each other for a dime. Oh, and while the oppressors them say that turning Struggle make you stronger. Struggle make you stronger. Struggle make you stronger. We face real ghetto pain, real ghetto pressure, real ghetto pain, real ghetto pressure, real ghetto pain.
Well, you know, in the journey of life, love can be a treacherous part of the journey. But in the end, we all must have hope. We all have to, you know, fight.
Wondering if you'll be coming home. I've been staring at the phone, thinking I should be alone. It's a run. What does this truly mean? All the things that's left unsaid, and all the things you said today. It's a run. I know you're hearing me. It don't have to be this way. Hey, Sarah, I know that this road can set me free. A whisper under her tears. No longer love for me in her eyes. No place for this red dress in your life. I know my actions let you down. Would you truly leave? Yes, Sarah, I need you here with me. Don't leave me crying home again. Open eye will understand. Yes, Sarah, I know you're hearing me. It don't have to be this way. Hey, Sarah. Well, things going around and around in my head. My intentions so misread. Tell me what to do to make you stay. I know your soul's been broken. You wear the pieces all around you. No more will you let me through. But it's alright. I know you're hearing me. I know you're looking for the better things in life. But it's alright. Don't you do that no more. Don't you remember love? Don't you remember me at all? Sarah, if I could only make you see, then girl, I would testify for the love I have for you in me. Sarah, if I could only make you see, then I would testify. Girl, I testify. It's alright. I know you're hearing me. I know you're looking for the better things in life. It's alright. Please don't do that no more. Oh, please remember love. Please remember me. Remember me. Remember love. Remember me. Remember Dwayne, remember me, remember love, remember me, remember me. I love you still. From a little cottage in the hill, way down west in Negril. Oh, this man sits, he sits pining for your love. And gee, I miss you, and how my lips wanna kiss you. I call you on the phone. To my surprise, you were not over, but from a little cottage in Greenhill, I wrote these lines to you, baby. From a little cottage in Greenhill, I realize I love you still. While brothers smoking Jane, and some they're shifting cocaine, some getting high, smoking Sensimilla by, some get tired on Donna Sensimilla cake. But I go west to watch sunset at the Ritz Cafe. But from a little cottage in Greenhill, baby, I wrote these lines to you, baby. And from a little cottage in Greenhill, I realize I love you still, love you still. Love you like river needs rain, the sunshine over the plain. Oh, I need your love, yeah. While brothers smoking J, some shifting cocaine, some getting high on Jenny Sensimilla, some get high, jamming on a ganja pipe. But I go west to watch sunset at the Ritz Cafe. But from a little cottage in the green, love you, baby. I wrote this lines, I wrote this lines for you, baby. And from a little cottage, oh, in the green, girl, I realize I love you, love you, love you.
Blessings, you know. That's a tune done originally by a great Jamaican artist called Tyrone Taylor. May his soul rest in peace, you know. Me be singing with the angels. The next song is called Augustown, and I hope you feel it, just like I did while I was writing this song. Na 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 na, oh. Na 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 na, yeah. A word from the wise: don't try to make life on your own. Remember that Jah just by your side. I was a soul who was lost, and my life was in despair. For among evil forces in which I played, guns and ammunition were my chosen way of life. With God-fearing people I chose to strive. All of the lives that are taken, they can never be replaced. But still Jah chose to remember my faith. Though I never lived like He wanted, I was mindful of what He taught me. So now I beg and plead, I'm on my bended knees, 'cause Father, you rescued me, and I've got the scars to show. I barely made it along life's road. Oh, when my life got dark, Jah was the light at the end of the road. When I was a young boy, growing up in Augustown, we ate from the same pot, we were hydrants all around, yeah. From Gola to Cola, Red Corner, Rockers to Jungle 12 Tire, Bryce Hill to Dread Heights and River, all around, all around. And then the football ground became a battlefield, and my life seemed so surreal. But Jah helped me to stand my ground. Only Jah would have helped me to stand my ground. Though I never lived like He wanted, I was mindful of what He taught me. So now I beg and plead, I'm on my bended knees, 'cause Father, you rescued me, and I've got the scars to show. I barely made it along life's road. Oh, when my life got dark, Jah was the light at the end of the road. Na 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 na. Father, you rescued me, rescued me. Na 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 na. Now I've lived and I've learned, made mistakes along the way. So I beg for forgiveness each day as I try to pray. But take it from me, son, you can change the world today. I and I are living proof that crime doesn't pay. Though I never lived like He wanted, I was mindful of what He taught me. So now I beg and plead, I'm on my bended knees. So Father, you rescued me, and I've got the scars to show. I barely made it along life's road. Oh, when my life got dark, he was the only spark. He was the light at the end of the road. I never lived like he wanted. I was mindful of what he taught me. So now I beg and plead, I'm on my bended knees. God's Father, you rescued me. I've got the so, oh yeah. Oh, when my life got dark, he was the only way. Na 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 na. That was the only way. Father, you rescued me. Showed me the light at the end of the day. You rescued me, you rescued me, you rescued me. Ja, 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 you rescued me. Just think about it. Life in Kingston town. Oh, think about it. She calls out to that man on the street. Sir, can you help me? It's cold and I've no place to sleep. There's somewhere you can tell me. He walks on and he doesn't look back. He pretends he can't hear her. Starts to whistle as he left August down. She's embarrassed to be there. Oh, think twice. Just another day for you and me in Kingston town. I said, oh, think twice. Just another day for you and me in Kingston town. Think about it. She calls out to that man on the street. He can see she's been crying. She's got blisters on the soles of her feet. She can't walk, but she's trying. I said, oh, think twice. Just another day for you and me in Kingston town. I said, oh, think twice. Just another day for you and me in Kingston town. Think about it. Oh Lord, is there anything that anybody can do? Oh Lord, there must be something you can say. Can tell by the lines on her face. You can see that she's been there. Probably been moved on from every place. 'Cause she doesn't fit in there. I said, oh, think twice. Just another day for you and me in Kingston town. I said, oh, think twice. Just another day for you and me in Kingston town. just another day, just another day for you and me in Kingston town. Oh, just another day for you and me in Kingston town. Just another day for you and me in Kingston town. Just think about it. Oh, think about it. Just think about it. Think about it. All right, well, you know, first, I'd like to say thank you very much for everyone out there in internet land. You know, thank you for taking time out of your lives. And of course, at this point, you know, we're just gonna introduce the band, starting with the man furthest to my left, Amardo on keyboards. And on drums is the General Shakiu. Heartbeat of the music, you know. And of course, to my right, I begin with the beautiful Tamar. And on guitar closest to me, the great Garth Dundalk. Nobody knows who is Garth, so we have to say Dundalk. And of course, Lamont Montesavory on acoustic guitar. So before we tread out, we have to give praises. And I think this tune is very fitting to leave you all with the blessings, Jah blessings. Reigns over man like the air over land. Jah reigns over man. Jah reigns over man, just like the rain over land. Jah reigns over man. Johnny looked at his father and said, I'll be coming home soon. Johnny was a good man. And though he lived in Babylon, Johnny tried, he tried. Oh, Johnny was a working man. Now I say, some time ago, for a reason no one knows, Johnny traded his soul for gold. Now he's afraid of the voice in his head, trying to hold on to who he used to be. Let righteousness be set free. He cried, woe, 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 like the rain over land. Jah reign over man. He cried, woe, 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 just like the rain over land. So Jah reign over man. Time and time again, Sandra was told to settle down. Oh, she worked her fingers to the bones. but with 5 mouths to feed. So lost in the things that she needs, fighting so hard to survive. Oh woman, she cried, tears fell from her eyes. Oh Father, please help me, fill me, cause I'm thirsty. Let righteousness be set free. She cried, woe, 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 like the rain over land, the rain over man. She cried, woe, 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 like the rain over land, the rain over man. I and I never trod alone, Rasta take I as his own. Good people always a fight down evil, and day to day we live while some have nothing and some have much to give, but higher praise and longer days. 39 trod it away. Boy, boy, like the rain over land, the rain over man. He cried, woe, 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 like the rain over land, the rain over man. Woe, 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 like the rain over land, the rain over man. Woe, 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 just like the rain over land, Jah rains over man. Jah live, Jah love, bless it. Like the rain over land, Jah rain over man.
Well, I think
Local, regional, and international supporting institutions. Sponsors: Caribbean Development Bank, ADEB Consultants, Jamaica Standard Products, CP Malcolm Dispute Management Practitioner, Island Blue Jamaica Mountain Coffee, Caribbean Producers Jamaica Limited, Jamaica Deposit Insurance Cooperation, Money Musk Rums, Arbitral Women, TADS, COK Sodality Cooperative Credit Union, and Ramo International Law. Media partners: Hype TV, Loop and Trend Media Limited.
Well, it's just left for me now to say thank you all very much for participating. I hope that you will feel that it was a good way to have spent your Ash Wednesday, for those of you who had today as a national holiday. For those of you who were working, let me just say good evening, good night, good morning, good day. I hope you will really feel that it was good for you to have been here. And thank you to Christopher and your team for putting on this wonderful conference. And, you know, I hope that the technology worked for everybody. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Alun. Good to
My
see
pleasure.
Thank
everybody.
you. Have a nice
Bye.
evening. Thank you, everyone.
All the
Thank you,
best.
Cla.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. You too, Rose. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Sponsors: Caribbean Development Bank,